Good morning and welcome back to Mirador Television. We had to take a break earlier than we usually would. We had a bit of a technical issue, but I have fixed that. That is gone now. It was blocking half of our screen, unfortunately, but we're back now. So the title of today for this show is the Answer Republican? Because I've been hearing a lot of people talk about republicanism being a better way for the UK to go besides a monarchy. Because I know a lot of people, especially people my age, really, really quite dislike the monarchy. Very much dislike the monarchy. A lot of people my age are coming at it from the angle of the monarchy is old, therefore it's a racist, therefore it should be abolished.
Racist?
Yes.
How the hell do you claim young people say it's racist? Everything is bloody racist, isn't it? What nonsense. What absolute nonsense. We all are racist. So why focus it? Right? I was in Canada and I couldn't get a job because of my voice, the way I sounded. Racist? Of course it was. And yet Canadians pride themselves on being such nice people. Bullshit. Oh, I'm sorry. I mustn't use that sort of word. But it makes me angry when I keep on hearing about racism. It's something that we've created, and therefore I've got to stoke. And it's the young people that are stoking it. So look at my head. This is how old I am. Racism? Nonsense. Right.
A lot of people my age are saying that, yeah. But they call everything racist.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
It means nothing anymore.
No, it doesn't.
They've gotten rid of the word. They've gotten rid of the meaning for the word racism. When you know what, I will say this. I had racism is thrown around so much. When someone is called racist, I don't believe it. I saw online someone saying, "Oh, this Richard Spencer fellow, he's quite a racist," and I thought, yeah, whatever, sure he is. So I went into search for Richard Spencer and went, "Oh, he's a part of the Ku Klux Klan. He is a member of the KKK. Okay, he might be a little bit racist." But because it's used so much, I go, no, it's not. Don't believe it. But then I did some research.
But surely the word there is extremist. Extremist. I mean, the Ku Klux Klan is extreme.
Yes, but you got to remember, it's young people saying this. They don't have...
Yeah, but I mean,
they just go
with all
racist,
due respect,
racist.
But in 1948, I think it was, is the Education Act, gave education, which had been a part of the privilege of those people with money, gave education to everybody. And you cannot go around excusing people for not knowing when, in fact, they have a hard-won right to have an education. And then they come out and because they don't know and because they haven't bothered to take advantage of that education, is if you don't know, shut up. That's the thing. If you do know, contribute to the debate and contribute in a real way, the way he does, right? I don't agree with anything he says, and neither does Stuart. But the fact of the matter is, we defend his right to do so. And when he puts up an argument, he puts it up as an educated young man. What really bothers me is it doesn't matter whether old or young, that 90% of people who start to yell about racism or republicanism or they don't know what they're talking about. If you now, a lot of these people that have been waving banners and republicanism and so on, if you ask them what is a republic, they wouldn't know. It's just a term. What it is it's not monarch. That's what they mean, not monarch. Well, then let's pull a great big hole in our constitution. What are you going to fill it with? Chaos, right? People in the streets not knowing, no rule of law. They don't even think about things like that. Oh, no, they're on their high horse. And what it is uneducated liberalism. And they are not educated. Those people that are actually put up a very, very good argument for republicanism. I don't agree with it, but they put up a decent argument. But most of them are just flag-waving idiots who, for whatever reason, have decided they don't like the monarchy, but they have no logical explanation as to why not, and they have no logical explanation as to why they support republicanism, or anything else for that matter.
You're right. I was having a good discussion with a teacher of mine one time about republicanism. He's very strongly a Republican, and I was having a good conversation with him. He's one of the few people left who can have a civil and good conversation with someone with an opposing opinion. We sort of agreed on it slightly, not all of it, but he was telling me that republicanism is, whilst he thinks it's probably one of the best ways to run the country, it's better than a constitutional monarch, but he doesn't have all the ideas. He can't formulate all the opinions. So he doesn't go out and he's like, I don't go out and wave banners.
No.
I don't go out and wave flags because I don't know. I'm not educated enough. And I see young people your age go out and wave flags about it, and they look ridiculous because you ask them a question and they just crumple under the pressure of being asked a very simple question of what is a republic? Or even nowadays, what is a woman? Young people can't define that.
In fairness, it's not just young people. There is a whole sector ranging from people my age down to people your age who actually are always advocating something, and they haven't a clue what they're advocating. And that is the tragedy. I don't mind somebody, they can come onto this program and they can say, we believe in republicanism, and then explain why they do. But the chances are that they'll say, let's have a republic. Why have a republic? What other countries do? That's nonsense. That's rubbish. Other countries get into far more difficulty than we do. Incidentally, if you hear anybody with the argument about, how costly it is our monarchy actually is something like 15th in line for the amount of money spent on the head of state. And do you know who is near to the top?
Hey.
France.
What?
The amount of money they spend on their president. Way. I mean, it's about another third more than we spend on ours. Yeah. You see, it's all very well. You hear all these things is, how much it costs and so on and so forth. And I mean, actually,
they probably bring in a lot in tourism as well.
Exactly. In fact, there is
the
a definitive amount put on that.
The economic argument isn't really a good, viable argument.
Not. It's not. But you see, that's what I've got against people who poo-poo a constitutional monarchy. They never have good reasons for what they're going to put in their place. Now, if you're going to argue for the removal of one form of governance and the institution of another, you've got to know what it is that you're putting in place. And actually, it's amazing. Spain, for instance, was a republic for a long time. And what did it do? It opted to go back to being a monarchy. It got fed up of the dictatorial attitudes of its Republican president. Boo, 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 boo. And that is quite often the case. Incidentally, our form of government, now, not all constitutional monarchies are totally the same. They are, by definition, constitutional monarchies, but then they actually govern in various different ways. But we go back to Plato in his Republic, which I'm guessing, actually I must look it up. I think he was about 400 BC. But he said in his Republic, which was a tome about good governance, that the best form of government is a combination of monarchy, oligarchy, that is ruled by the few, and democracy, ruled by the people.
Which is
what have we got?
All of that.
Yeah, exactly. So at least we go back to the Greek philosophers.
They were really advanced for their time.
They were.
Very advanced.
Yeah. Mind you, the funny thing is that people use all sorts of things to support their argument. I mean, for instance, is democracy. Let's go back to Athenian democracy. Athenian democracy only lasted about 15 years because basically all citizens, if you were a slave or a foreigner or whatever, you were not allowed to vote. You had to be a Greek citizen, an Athenian citizen. And they would meet on the green and they would all vote. Shall we go to war? Yes. Shall we do this? Shall we do that? And it became so unworkable that after 15 years, they abandoned it. So this pure form of democracy that everybody says, Athenian democracy, my goodness me, etc., etc., it was rubbish. They found it couldn't work. So they had to go back to some sort of authoritarian rule. And also, just as a matter of interest, because these things do crop up, is about half a mile from here is the helmet, which we use as our logo, to a medieval knight. And it's the helmet of a medieval knight, which is dedicated to the Battle of Lewes. The Battle of Lewes took place just outside Lewes, but it did spill over into the grounds of the Priory, and that's where this statue is. But the Battle of Lewes was about a democratic process. It was about the king not having a divine right to determine what was happening, or, for that matter, to get taxes and then spend them the way he wanted. And it was here, in the Battle of Lewes, that the first sparks of democracy began to fan the flames. Not the democracy that we know it quite as it was, but it was the first parliament, after the Battle of Lewes, was the first parliament in Westminster, made up of barons, admittedly, but nonetheless it was a start. There. Not a lot of people know that.
No. Okay. I don't know anything about. I don't know apart from what you tell me. I don't know much about the history here.
Lewes is full of history, of course. I mean, you can't actually walk down the high street without putting a foot on something that's historic. I mean, even to the point where the meridian goes right through the middle of Lewes.
The what?
The meridian, the line that divides AM and PM. Basically, you can just go up the road here about 100 yards. Well, no, it's about 200 yards, and you can put your foot in today and tomorrow at the same time. So here is at the moment we're on British summertime, but let's say it's Greenwich Mean Time, where all other time ranges begin and end. It's from here that, for instance, France is an hour ahead of us. It's from here that the Americas are 4 hours behind, and the meridian goes right through the middle of Lewes.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Is there a marking showing?
Yes,
it?
there is. There is something in the pavement. We don't make a great big fuss of it because, generally speaking, people actually go to Greenwich to see that on the River Thames. But that line comes right through the middle of Lewes, right down through the railway lands and right down to the coast. So there you are. I'm full of trivia.
No, I didn't know that.
Don't ask me anything serious. You see, actually, if Kevin took me up the road with this glass of beer and I stood with 1 foot in over the meridian line, I would legally be drinking there, and on this side I would not be legally drinking. So I could have my glass of beer and keep on switching it backwards and forwards.
And then they changed. When did they change the lines?
They don't change the line; they just change the time. We have British summertime at the moment, and that's when we put the clocks back or forward or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, but for most of the year, we have
this.
actually Greenwich Mean Time.
I don't know if you've seen this, but if you look at the time zone map of the world, China, humongous country. I think it's the 3rd or 4th biggest country in the world. That's all one time zone.
Yes.
Because that's what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
So they did
I don't know how they handle that. I mean, one part of the country wakes up at let's say 8 a.m. and it's pitch black, and another part is it's the sun is in the sky. Yeah,
It's still 8 a.m. But it's probably about midday.
Yeah, but anyway, that's their choice.
There should be, the way it's lined up, there should be 4 different time zones in China, but because it's China, they went, no, I'm good.
Yeah, I think actually the rest of the world probably does. The only thing is that you can't tell the Chinese what time it is because they've decided how they're going to do it. Right. Now, where are we?
Well, we shall go to a short break, and then we'll look, and we'll get some stories from behind the headlines.
Shall we show a video? Actually, what I did yesterday while you weren't here is I actually showed part two of the documentary. We might just show that again because it's at least for a little while until we come back. It is there somewhere. Go down a bit. Ratty and the Races is one of them. Go down a bit more. I think we've got another one. That's the Rockies. Down. Oh, we can't go anymore. I do not understand this storage system.
No, it does. Well, it does need a complete overhaul.
Well, why don't we watch a bit of Ratty and the Races?
About this one.
Yeah. Okay.
The Bloody Pass.
Oh, yes. That'd be fine. Yeah.
All right.
I think that may be the one that we're looking for.
All right.
Okay. Away we go, and then we'll be back with more fractious chats. Lovely scene, isn't it? Beautiful green grass, blackberry bushes surrounding the lawn. Peaceful. The chaps, gliding a bowling ball across the cropped turf. Couldn't be more pleasant. But this bowling green was originally the tilting ground for the castle. A bit like the local football club, Norman knights turned up regularly to practice cutting off ears, piercing armour with pike or sword. Or even more dramatically, they charged at one another with pointed lances, determined to knock an opponent to the ground, ready to perform the coup de grace, that last fatal plunge of the sword in the unguarded bit of flesh, the throat. Makes me feel quite faint. But the Knights of 1100 had to be honed to military perfection. Not only was there the odd disgruntled Saxon around, but even his own side could give the king a rough time. And indeed they did. But before we go to another bloody incident on the Lewes High Street, let's stay with the tilting ground for a moment. In the 1700s, the soldiers, who had wielded their swords with such skill, discovered guns and started shooting one another. That more or less ended the fun of charging at one another with horses. And so this bit of real estate was up for grabs, and the local crown bowlers seized the opportunity in 1751 and turned tilting into bowling. But this is Lewes, remember. Nothing is ever what it seems. The horses had ploughed up the ground a bit, so the surface wasn't even. You can see the bumps and ridges across the green. So the type of bowls played on this green was different to any played through the British Isles. And 500 years later, it still is.
It goes way back to medieval times, but so far as we're concerned here, we've been playing here since 1753, and there is some evidence to suggest that in the mid-1600s there was bowls played here. And we're reputed to be the oldest society, sporting society in the world. Very unique. We're unique in many respects. I mean, firstly, the woods are unique in that most of them over 100 years old. They're lignum vitae, which is very, very hard wood, and that's the reason, of course, they've survived as long as they have. The jack is biased, which is very unusual, and the green is undulating, very undulating. There's not another green anywhere in this country, so far as we know. And it makes for a very fascinating but unique game, one that we can't play any other club because there aren't any that play like this. We have a membership of 50 only because, or 55 now, because that's all the woods we have. They're handed down from person to person. We have a championship game in the summer because we have a competition throughout the year, which is within the club. And I think the winner of that is not only our own champion, but we can consider he's world champion. As long as we can retain the green, and I think we can retain the green, as long as we can do that, there's no reason why this society shouldn't continue ad infinitum almost. It's a great Lewes establishment.
So bowling in Lewes is completely unique. And very difficult. But back to blood and guts. In the last episode, I spoke of a battle between the king and some of his barons. The king, Henry III, held the castle. Now, as you can see, the castle pokes up into the sky quite a bit. The Motter is a man-made hill. And as you can see, a few hours of overtime were put in to build this pile of dirt. From the top, you can see in every direction for miles. Almost impossible to creep up without being noticed. And there was a moat to cross as well. But it's called Castle Ditch Lane, the name reflecting its purpose all those years ago. The king, rather unsportingly, had more men on his side than the barons. But it seems he fell asleep at the switch, and on that meadow over there, Simon de Montfort drew up his troops and joined battle. Fighting was fierce. After all, they'd all been on their own tilting greens, preparing for such a showdown as this. The battle was short and sharp, and the barons put the royal troops to flight. And they showed no mercy. The priory had been used as a staging post by the king's men, and they now took refuge there. It's little wonder that tilting grounds became bowling greens, because despite all that training, the king's men panicked. Screams of terror from both monks and soldiers echoed around the priory. As burning arrows thudded into thatched roofs, setting the priory buildings afire, fighting spilled over to here, our beloved but bloody High Street. Soldiers were either massacred or crushed to death as they tried to get across the bridge over the River Ouse. For the king, it was a complete disaster.
De Montfort, he split his armies on the hills behind us in the chalk downs. He split his army into three forward not flanks, but bunches of men, groups. And they would have been around 1,500 people in them. So a lot of people. So he had 1,500 people. Then he kept men back for himself. So his left flank went off to Barkham and met Prince Edward, and they went off to Barkham. Prince Edward, being a hothead and chasing them all the way up to Barkham, away from the town, was one of the reasons the king's men lost. because and they were mounted knights. And then the other two sets came into the town and were met by the King's army and Richard of Alameyn's army on sort of the hills around us, really, because where we are now would have been outside the town.
And it was a pretty bloody war.
It was dreadful. It was absolutely dreadful. It's hard to imagine. Lewes is a little place, and on the hills around Lewes, where most of the fighting was, there were tens of thousands of people trying to kill each other. And it was hand-to-hand close combat. And you didn't often die of wounds on the battlefield immediately. You were usually whacked with a broadsword and you would die of internal bleeding, or you would, have limbs severed and die slow death, or you would die death from infection, etc.
So there you go. Not quite one man, one vote, but some slight recognition that the divine right of kings isn't exactly what the Almighty had in mind. A spark of democracy was ignited, and it happened in Lewes. As usual, this is thirsty work, and I need to take a break. In fact, have a tipple, or perhaps go to the loos. Don't leave me, there's more blood and gore to come. Oh, Lewes, what a place! Lewes increased in importance as the Norman occupation took hold. Not that it wasn't important before that. In Saxon times, the town had 2 mints. And in case my pronunciation confuses you, those are places where coins were made, not a sweet that is eaten to try to disguise what you've been drinking. The now much larger cathedral town of Chichester only had 1 mint, which not only indicated the importance of Lewes, but started a sort of battle of popularity between the two places. The struggle for the rights to hold assizes, for example, created a tug of war that saw Chichester hold trials for a while, only for Lewes to get them back. Lewes won. The Crown Court and Lewes Assizes are still located in the modern town, and they ain't going nowhere. Mighty though the Norman castle was, it was dwarfed by the Cluniac Priory, just across this small valley. William de Warenne, who actually fought at the Battle of Hastings, was granted Lewes, along with lots of other goodies, as the spoils of war. His wife Gundrada, a religious lady, asked for and got a sponsorship to establish the priory, just 20 years after England was conquered. Henry VIII's chief vandal, Thomas Cromwell, pulled it down in 1547. Doing the bidding of the king who had fallen out with Rome over his love life. But the workmen of the 11th century were first-class masons, and some of these buildings have lasted to this day. Look at that, almost 1,000 years old. It wasn't just Henry and Thomas who were vandals. The good burghers of Lewes did their part over successive centuries, digging up the grounds and using the stones to build their garden sheds. By the time it was destroyed, the priory dominated the Lewes skyline. Its great church was immense, and the whole complex had its own hospital, dormitories, dining hall, and a wharf. Boats sailed up to the priory to carry and fetch goods. How times change. This river, the Winterbourne, carried ships and barges up to the docks in the priory. Nowadays, it would barely carry a paper boat.
moron. I'm an idiot. I can't believe I just did that.
He's always having a go at me for doing
believe I just did that.
it.
Because I played Garden Park afterwards, I assumed it would automatically.
Yeah, right. Oh, right there. I could live on that for a couple of weeks.
Okay, that should have automatically undone itself, but it didn't. What was I saying? Welcome back.
Right, we seem to have fixed the problem, don't we?
We have fixed the problem, yeah.
Yeah.
That was episode 2 of the bloody history of a tiny town. There's a little bit more of it left. I think there's about 7 minutes left of it. So you'll get to see the end of it in a little bit. But what did you want to say? Did you want to say anything before we get into the backstories?
Is a couple of things. I mean, first of all, I'm always accusing the MPs of having benefits that nobody else has. Well, we have benefits coming into this hotel in the morning because we are able, occasionally, Kevin comes along and says, I've just changed the barrels. I want to test the beers. So, Keith, would you mind having a little tipple? And in fact, I had this one. Not bad. And then I had this one, which I said was a little bit lively. And in fact, let's give it a plug. What he said was, this is Foster's. This is the cheapest that you can get. And in my view, this one he gave me earlier, but it felt that it wasn't at all good because the barrel is too fresh.
I don't know.
Absolutely. That is a no-no. That's okay, but this one, in my view,
That's
for my
right
taste, was best, and that was Foster's.
I've never tasted it right out of the barrel. Where's you on that side?
Yeah, have a go.
Oh. Yeah, that's not nice.
Yes, it is actually distinctly nasty, isn't it? Yes.
No, I've never. Yeah, that was actually horrible. Yeah, this one's.
It's not bad. Not bad. I don't know what brand it is. I just know that the winner,
They're all
if you like, was
no, they're all Fosters. Yeah. All of it. It's all the same.
Oh, was that
different times?
No, that was different. Fosters. That tastes quite different to that.
Yeah, coming out of the barrel.
Have you got a couple more up there? Anyway.
But yeah, that's certainly.
What we know?
I've never tasted it coming straight out of the barrel before. That is not very nice.
No, I think that I've never been a publican, so I don't really know. But I think that they like to take off the top little bit just to get into the barrel proper, because that top little bit takes away some of the nasty stuff which has been lying on top while the barrel's been in storage. I just thought, going back to our debate earlier, is that in the inside of the Andrew Marr, a man for whom I have some considerable respect as a journalist. I think Andrew Marr is not a bad journalist. He's written some pretty damn good books too. But
Andrew Marr, he's on LBC, isn't he?
Well, he was on BBC for a while. Andrew Marr on a Sunday.
He's LBC.
Yeah,
now,
so
yeah.
pretty well known, and a journalist of some note, I think. But he's written, and he says arresting people for criticising the monarchy will only damage the monarchy itself.
Yes,
and it's
that's a very good
absolutely
point.
right. Yeah, is you don't arrest people, and one of the things that is bothering me, and we are small. Mirador is small. We admit that we're small. Except that we get a steady flow of people adding onto our various lists each day. So we are growing gently, but steadily. And so we are beginning to have some sort of influence. And one of the influences that I think that we try to have is is to establish that we are a free society, that they can't lock us up. We say some outrageous things, and I sometimes say, gosh, after that, I expect somebody to come through the door and either break my nose or put me in handcuffs. And it doesn't happen, nor should it happen.
It's happened to me.
Was somebody marched in here and tried to arrest
No,
you?
not in here, no. But I have been in legal trouble for speech before.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, then that's outrageous.
I don't think I've ever gone into it properly. What happened with
No.
you? I've spoken to Liza about it. I'll speak about it tomorrow with her then.
Okay, yeah, bring that up.
properly.
That's the sort
But
of thing that we need to know about.
I have been in legal trouble for having an opinion.
Really?
Yeah, which is this okay on a Wednesday with me and Stuart. This is my tame opinion a lot of the time. I can't say what I really think, which is why, because I don't want that to happen again. I already have a record of it happening once. What if I say?
Well, I mean, I can't force you to, but you know very well, and you often comment, is that I let loose.
Yeah.
I really let rip, and I actually challenge them to come and get me.
Well, I am a
Come and lock me up.
huge advocate for free speech. I'm a free speech absolutist.
Absolutely.
But you know, after that first experience, if I get another one, I could get in some serious trouble.
Right. Well, we understand if you can't. Don't worry. I will be an advocate for all of us because I don't care. What I find is that government or governance is what they do is they ignore you, and they think if they ignore you long enough, you'll go away. Well, we're not going anywhere. We're here, and we're here to stay, and we are going to express opinions, and we are going to actually express opinions forcibly enough to challenge the existing laws. And the existing laws are encroaching upon our freedom of speech, and the police, for whom I have little regard anymore, none of them have got anything between the ears, from chief constables on down.
Can I just say this?
You know, they just nick anybody for what they perceive to be wrong.
They came to me, and I quote when I say this. They came to check my thinking.
Oh, God Almighty!
And that is a direct quote from the police force.
Then that is absolutely appalling.
Mm-hmm.
And we really should follow that up.
I thought I had told you about that.
What?
I thought I told you about this.
No.
It must have been just Liza on her own.
Yeah. No, you haven't told me. I actually.
That is literally the quote from 1984.
Right. All right. Well, when we're off screen, you can tell me about it, and let's see if it's something we should do something about.
I've
and
mentioned
demand an explanation.
I've mentioned to you previously that I wanted to be a police officer, have I not?
Yeah.
And I mentioned that got ruined by an overreaction, and that's what I'm talking about. That's the incident I've been referring to, which I thought you would already know.
No. This is all news to me. But
this happened in 2019. No, 2018.
Because I will. Well, let's put it this way. I don't follow Canadian politics too closely anymore, but I understand that during lockdown and during the tractor drivers' strike in Canada, Justin Trudeau, the present Prime Minister, actually called out the army for some reason. It seems to me I saw a little bit, but
for entirely peaceful protests.
There was nothing naughty about it. But his father, in the 1970s, who was then Pierre Trudeau, who was then Prime Minister, actually imposed martial law on Canada for 48 hours on the basis that the FLQ were about to take over and terrorize the entire country. And when they actually discovered the basis of the Fédération Libération de Québec, which was a terrorist organization, but in fact it turned out to be a couple of hippies in a basement suite with 2 sticks of weeping gelignite and a sawn-off rusty a shotgun. I mean, that is partly apocryphal, but in other words, they
Is that
were
all
no
they
great
had?
threat. But he imposed, not very much. But he imposed martial law, which meant that somebody in northern British Columbia could say something like "down with the government," and could be arrested by somebody imposing that from Ottawa, which was 4,000 miles away. It was absolutely appalling. And at the time, a lot of libertarians did have a go at them. And then everybody forgets. But, it's funny. I've lived in Canada for 17 years. Love Canadians, love the country, love the lifestyle, love a lot of things about Canada. But their self-assessment of being very nice people and therefore nobody takes offense is nonsense. It's rubbish. They are a nation. And they make mistakes, and they've got traits the same as any other nation, which are not at all pleasant. So I wish they'd get off the pot and get real, because they have been as guilty of infringing human rights and the freedom of speech and freedom of thought as anybody, and yet they make no apology for it whatsoever.
So that was a big thing under the trucker protest of Canada in 2020. Yeah, that was late 2020, early 2021. This was going on. One of the biggest things that people were saying as talking points was the last time the military was used on their own citizens was under Justin Trudeau's father, Premier Trudeau. That was the last time.
It's Pierre.
Pierre.
Pierre. Yeah.
Pierre
Trudeau.
Yeah. So
he and I did not sit easy with one another, I'll tell you.
So he was French then, yeah.
French Canadian, yeah.
Canadian politics seems quite easy, to be honest, because you just don't vote for the French guy.
If only that was that simple. Actually, it's very splintered. The government of British Columbia from 1953 to 1972 or 73 was governed by something called Social Credit.
Yeah,
the Social Credit Party.
Really?
Yeah,
So,
and in the provincial parliament.
Hang on. So that again, I missed the first part altogether.
Right, they were governed by a party called Social Credit, and the premier was a man called W.A.C. Bennett. I didn't know him well, but I knew him, and in fact, he and his deputy, a lady called Grace McCarthy, gave me an honorary membership as a citizen of British Columbia when I left, which I suppose I still hold today. Not that it holds much water or power, but it's nice.
Wait, so can you vote in Canadian elections if you're not an Irish?
No, it's a residency thing. I would have to be back there. But in theory, I think that my daughter can. She holds a Canadian passport, and my grandsons hold a Canadian passport. They also hold a British passport and an Irish passport.
Really?
They got 3 passports. Yeah.
Can they technically vote in free elections, or
I think once again they would have to have a residency qualification. In other words,
because I know Wales got rid of voter ID. I know this was a big controversy recently. You can vote in Wales even if you're not a citizen.
You can vote in Canada if you're not a citizen, but you need to live there. You can't suddenly say, I'm in Lewis, I think I'll vote in the Canadian elections. You have to live in Canada. But what you can do is you can have an address, say, I don't know, 4636 West 24th Street in Vancouver, and that you're over here, say, going to university for 6 months or whatever, and there's an election called, is you can vote in that election. Because you've got a residency qualification, you've got an address there, and that's most countries are a bit like that. I think I have a postal vote, incidentally, or I did have. I don't know whether I still do have a postal vote for any election here.
Really?
Well, I was away so much that I do like to cast my vote. I think it's very important for everybody to cast their vote. It may well be that you don't approve of any of the candidates, and in fact, you can spoil your vote And while I don't advocate spoiling your vote, is if you spoil your vote, at least you've made a point that you did vote. You did have a ballot and you cared enough. But you know, the tragic thing is, locally, the percentage that turn out for local elections is around 30%. So there are 70% of us, all of whom stamp their little feet, yell and scream about how things aren't to their liking, and they don't vote. You get what you vote for or don't vote for.
Yeah, that's what I always think of people overseas. When people complain about Trump, I'm like, well, you got what you vote for. You got, and people complain about Biden. Well, you got what you voted
Yes,
for.
that's right. Well, in the main, I mean, I think there are some arguments about that. But
it does get on my nerves quite a lot. I don't know if it gets on yours too. But people who complain relentlessly about politics when they choose not to vote.
Yes.
That gets on my nerves so much.
Absolutely.
You don't have a right to say anything.
No, quite right.
Vote. If you had voted, even for a small independent party like I do, the Libertarian Party or Reform UK, you at least then have a leg to stand on. I didn't vote for these people. But if you didn't vote because you couldn't be bothered or you're too lazy or you just don't like it, I'm sorry, you don't have a right to complain.
No, quite right. Absolutely. I'm with you on that. And I think it's people's responsibility to vote. But even in federal elections, I mean, national elections, it's still the vote turnout is only about 70%. There's still 30% of people eligible to be on the electoral roll who actually don't vote. Now, just once in a while, I think that there is a legitimate reason for not voting. You know, I was away from home unexpectedly, and I didn't have a postal vote.
Oh yeah, that's
those
different.
sort of things.
That's
but
not
that could allow for 10%, not 30%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That wasn't a choice, though. You didn't make a choice to not get your postal vote.
No, I didn't.
So that's
choose
completely
not to.
different.
Yeah, quite right.
This year will be the first election I can vote in. Next year, sorry.
Oh, good lad.
Be interesting.
Well, yeah, I mean,
a lot will change in that time. So who knows?
Is it 2024 that the next election is set? Although the way that politics is going at the moment, it wouldn't surprise me if we don't have an election before that. I mean, there was some suggestion that Liz Truss should go to the country with a snap election. She decided not to, and I think very wisely so too. Well, those people advising her live in the Westminster bubble. They had no idea of the depth of feeling that people had.
Well, a lot of people complaining about Liz Truss and the monarchy at the same time, saying, we didn't vote for the monarchy, obviously, and we didn't vote for Liz Truss. It was 99.7% of the population didn't vote in this election, and 100% of the people didn't vote for the monarchy, which they have a good point, sure, but that's the system we have, and it would be the same if it were under any different monarchy. I missaid that. It'd be the same under any different party.
Yeah.
It's not a great system. It's the system we have. It works better than most.
Now, here's a dichotomy. Good news. The jobless rate hits a 48-year low, and yet everybody is complaining they can't get people to work. Nobody will go for the job. I was reading an article by somebody who's a specialist in personnel, human resources, and essentially what they say is lots of people turn up for the first interview, and they seem to be fairly good. And so they're asked to come back for a second interview, and they never turn up at the second interview.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of competition right now, which is good because it means other places will be having more competitive wage increases, which is good for everyone. But yeah, I don't quite understand how
we've got such a low employment rate and so many vacancies. Yeah. I agree with you.
Even though I found it very difficult to get a job, I think that was because of what I said earlier, because of that thing on my record. That's why I couldn't get. That's why I couldn't get a job.
That means nothing to us.
I know it means nothing to you.
Well, I mean, I suppose that each employer has his own idea of what he's looking for in an employee.
Yeah.
that you've got to sort of accept. That's fine. I mean, the fact is we like people with freedom of thought and freedom of ambition and the ability to think on their feet and think for themselves. So whether you've got a stain on your character for speaking out and having your mouth shut is entirely nothing to do with us, unless what you did was you suggested insurrection, burn down Parliament or something.
It was a very mild thing I said.
Very mindless.
Very mild. Not even. It wasn't. Even,
I'm glad to hear that, but I don't. Really
it wasn't
care.
even an ism. It wasn't even an ism. It's not like I said all of this group is bad. I never said anything like that. It was.
Did somebody report you? I mean, how did
Yes.
they find out about it?
So
Somebody reported you.
someone reported me to a teacher. The teacher got not just the police, may I say, a terrorist task force to make sure I wasn't some sort of jihad. So I thought I was going to put a towel on my head and fly into a building or something, which is absolutely ridiculous. Anyone who knows me would say that's obviously not Max.
Absolutely.
But me and my friends had a meme page. I don't know if you know what a meme is.
No.
A joke in image format, usually has some text on it. It's modern humor, basically.
Right.
Me and my friends had about 300 individual memes, and they were quite funny. Some of them were over the line, I'll admit, but most of them were very mild. Danny DeVito jokes, a lot of them, those sorts of things, just silly things. But out of these 300 memes that me and my friends had, the teacher took 5 and showed them to my mother and to this terrorist task force guy, the 5 worst possible ones. And yeah, misconstrued what I said, and she was saying that I believe in all these terrible things. I was never calling for anything. You know what? I shouldn't really be talking about it here, but it is what it is. I got a terrorist task force called on me over nonsense. It was a nonsense reason, and yeah.
Now here's something: killed by a kangaroo. An animal beats an Oz alpaca farmer to death in the first fatal attack since 1936.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, to be quite honest with
Since
you, I wouldn't
1936.
like to take on a kangaroo.
A kangaroo hasn't killed anyone in
in a fatal attack since 1936.
So,
And this poor
that's pretty
guy,
good.
whatever he did to upset the kangaroo, is the kangaroo beat him to death.
No one's died from a kangaroo in 86 years.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting.
And not only that, he kept this kangaroo as a pet. Well, goodness gracious me. He hand raised from a joey unexpectedly turned on him. How odd.
Okay, well, if I were to give any advice to anyone, don't keep wild animals as pets. Don't do that. That's ridiculous.
Yes.
I know a friend of mine who caught a wild snake and kept it as a pet. Found it at Crawley train station and went, well, this is mine now, and put the snake in his hat and took it home on the train. Don't know why he did that, but he did.
Here's just a little editorial that is. I've always believed, and I've said that this lurks in my background because having worked in Russia and knowing a little bit about how they think and how Putin thinks, is a commentary by David Petrikakakis. Forget the name, but it says a genuine tipping point. Could a cornered Putin now lash out? In other words, he's got a lot of reverses, and there were more reported this morning in the Ukraine war. Is that this is going to destroy his standing at home, and will he actually, because he's suffering these reverses, could he now start to use nuclear technology? It's an interesting thought, and one that I think we need to never have too far away from our thoughts. Let's see. Lord Ashcroft's £50,000 reward to catch gunman who killed Olivia. Okay, that's not terribly great stuff. Anything in the entertainment stuff? I don't see it.
I did find a story here on my phone on the internet. It says here, this is about Russia. This is an opinion piece by the Telegraph. Prepare for Russia itself to dissolve.
To disintegrate, right?
To disintegrate.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't read the Telegraph actually because they.
No, I know they want
make-
you to buy it.
They
don't
want me to buy the article.
Yeah.
So that's all you get for the headline, and the Telegraph is annoying.
Yes.
From the Guardian. Mystery of new woman in Kim Jong Un's inner circle. He's hired a woman. Oh my God,
That's
a woman.
North Korea, is it?
That is.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is it his wife? Does he have a wife? Does he have many wives?
I don't know. I don't know much about his love life.
No, I think he's a very private guy, if I'm honest. If you look at the way he runs his country. Yeah. Oh, Sarah Fitzpatrick is at work on The Guardian as well.
That's good stuff.
A woman has been pictured in North Korean leaders side in recent months, often carrying a handbag.
Right. Speaking of Sarah Fitch-Hayes, we have done an interview with her, which when is that appearing, Max?
So the one we did the other day will appear on Monday next week.
Monday next week.
I still haven't resolved the issue with Filmora. I don't know what's going on. I don't think I'm certainly not rebuying it again because that was a lot of money to do a lifetime subscription.
Yeah. What problem are you talking about?
My editing software.
Oh, right. Oh, yes. I would go through to their complaints department.
Yeah, but like all things, they don't have a number, and then they have an email
but that's holding up some of our programs. Is it?
It is.
Programs
Yes.
is holding up?
For now, Sarah Fitch-Hayes, that's the only one that's being held up right this second.
Right.
But I am edit right now.
Can we do a rough edit on some other system? Like I.
Well, here's the thing. I've already edited it entirely. It was only when I went to export it. It said, "Oh, by the way,
you can't. Yeah, you can't actually export.
I can edit everything. Everything that I need to edit can be edited in full. They just won't let me export it unless I pay for it again.
Right. Well, if I was you, I would a high priority because, as I recall from that edit software, they do make it quite easy to get in touch with them. Unlike some
unlike Facebook.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is a little bit of time since I used it.
Well, Filmora is a very good editing system. Yeah, it's a very good system.
But
it's just kicked me out of my account. That's all.
Yeah, it does seem to me that there was one of those things where you can actually click in and talk to them direct.
Okay. We'll talk about it.
Well, right. Why don't you play a little something?
We've got 7 minutes left of this.
Oh, right. Okay.
Should we go to
you want the last 7 minutes of that? Yes. Yeah. What's the time?
The time is 8. Sorry, not 8. The time is 10:20. We have about 40 minutes left.
Right. So 10:20 on the. Today is the 14th, is it?
14th. Those are correct. Yeah.
14th of September in the year 2022. The temperature today is going to hit about 20. It's going to be thundery showers, so do be prepared for going out, and a very light breeze.
Yes, I didn't bring an umbrella.
That's the weather. So if we actually now go back to The Bloody Past of a Tiny Town, our award-winning documentary, which gives a pretty fair reflection on what Lewis is like. That would be rather good. But for the moment, do remember, people are gathering and staking their pitch to watch the funeral of the Queen, which is on Monday. And already they're sitting with their little flasks, and I suggested it would be a good idea for them to take a bog roll with them too, some toilet paper. that is all beginning to happen today, and it's building. I haven't seen anything of the latest, but I will look while this is playing and see if there's any update that we need to be aware of. Take it away, Maestro.
The Priory was vitally important to the local economy, bringing in goods and attracting important visitors.
The ship would have actually come very near to the edge of where the tennis courts are. That's where, because you've got the Cockshoot river or stream which fed into the Ouse, and then yes, there would have been a wharf here from which they unloaded all the stones that they used to build the Priory. Because what we see now is a lot of the infill. It's like the cavity walling of the Priory. The outside, the dress stone, which is now used in places like Southover Grange, came from Carr on the Isle of Wight or from Caen, so it all had to be imported. It was a significant part of the town. It started small with only 4 monks, but over the course of about 400 or 500 years, the numbers swelled. The maximum number we had was probably about 100 monks. But the church, the big church that was built in the 14th century, was bigger than Chichester Cathedral. It was massive. It dominated the skyline in Lewes, so it was incredibly important. And it looked both ways. It looked inland because Lewes was the mother priory for other Cluniac monasteries in the UK, and it also looked towards Europe with its mother house in Cluny. We do a lot of education work with a whole range from tiny children up to adults to get them interested in different aspects of the Priory. And the trustees of Lewes Priory Trust are very keen that it's always open free access, and it's a beautiful place that everybody can come to. They can learn about the history, they can sit in our herb garden and contemplate, and we've just started a new kitchen garden which will grow vegetables, and again this is for the community to get involved in. So it's very much based in the community of Lewes.
But there's nothing like a bit of competition to stir the blood of a true Lewesian. And sometime in the 15th century, a big fight is recorded between the bailiffs of the town and the prior's men in a local tavern. One of the 63 pubs that once existed in the town, no doubt. The town was walled in 1275, and a fat lot of good it did. When de Montfort's troops attacked, they swept into the town with no trouble. That then caused the town's nobility to strengthen them. They remained intact from then for some centuries, when they came down to the hammers of developers as the town grew. Entry to the town was by 3 gates, north, south and west, each now remembered through the name and a few remaining stones where the wall had been. The walls may have gone, and most of the priory. But many buildings in Lewes have stood the test of time and the vandalism of kings. This church was originally a hospice attached to the priory, and this was an early hospital from the same period. And Cromwell wasn't daft enough to pull down a Tudor manor which Henry had given as part of a divorce settlement. He kept Anne of Cleves House for himself. Within the town walls, this building has more than stood the test of time. St Michael's was the original castle church, built about 1240. It's the parish church of the town and holds both church services and musical concerts today. There is a helmet and depiction of Sir Patrick Hamilton on one of the walls. Lewes is close to the coast and open to attack from French marauders, who regularly attacked the coast. On one occasion in the 16th century, ships sailed up the Ouse far enough for them to be spotted from inside the town. This noble knight depicted here was renowned for his courage in seeing them off. Later, revolutionary Tom Paine was married here before decamping to the Americas. And its spiral tower is one of the few surviving in the UK.
Before we disappear into the folds of one of Lewis's hostelries,
There's one more legacy from Henry's break with Rome. His successor, Queen Mary, wanted to restore the Roman Church to England, and she was very vicious towards dissenters. 17 people who refused to give up their beliefs or had read the Bible in English were seized and thrown into a dungeon in Lewes. In November 1545, they were marched up these stairs out to a stake and put in tar barrels. Burning to death in that way was a very horrible way to die. One more chapter in the Bloody Lewes High Street saga. This act of savagery has not been lost in the mists of time, however. The 17 martyrs, as they're known, are remembered on November the 5th in the biggest bonfire ceremonies of any Guy Fawkes night in the world. 7 bonfire societies stage a joint procession through the town, torches blazing, effigies of Guy Fawkes and of so-called enemies of bonfire, those who have behaved badly in the year, pulled on carriages stuffed with fireworks. It's a colourful and impressive procession, but with an underlying commemoration of the 17 dead. The parade stops at the town's war memorial for the laying of wreaths to the fallen. Prayers are said. Banners extolling the names of the martyrs are held high. And rousers, or better known to us as bangers, are freely thrown around as the people march. It's a colourful parade. And I feel underdressed, with just one of my hats to show off. But bonfire, as it's known locally, is not the only memory of Bloody Lewes. It suffered a far worse fate from a hidden foe. The Black Death. On Bloody Red to Deadly Black. Next episode, how rats destroyed a major port and brought more historical carnage to Lewes. Until then, a bloody goodbye. Poor old Lewes. I need a drink.
Okay, and welcome back to Mirador Television. That was the last of part 2 for the Bloody History of Tiny Town, a very good show, which I still haven't been able to watch fully. I've seen bits of it, but I've not gone through all of it. It's good, very good.
Yeah, it's 8 episodes. One or two of those episodes flag a little, as they often do. As a friend of mine said, when you're doing a documentary series, make sure that the first program is very good and the last program is very good, and then people forget what's in between. Yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is that in the High Street, which is just beyond the window here from where we're sitting, has seen more blood flow down it than most people have seen in a lifetime. It's amazing how much death and destruction took place, particularly in medieval times, but in Tudor times too, and even down to, although it wasn't blood, is in 2000 the floods, the rivers overflowed and devastated the town, put it out of business for quite a long time, and that's why everybody gets very twitchy if we suddenly get lots of rain and a threat of floods. One thing I noticed here, I was just looking through the news backgrounds, Max. I mean, one is the build-up of people all ready to view the royal coffin, but secondly is that the food prices rose at the fastest August rate in 27 years. So we talk about the energy costs and so on, but actually is you get in and you put on the stove and you say, I will try to look after myself in as economical way as possible. I'll have some eggs on toast. You're now going to have to worry about what you actually do actually eat because the price rises are substantial. One I can tell you is quite specifically is Waitrose have slices of ham. I've been buying them for years and years and years, and they were £1. And they're a nice package of ham, good for sandwiches, particularly for somebody like myself who is busy and not terribly adept at doing things in the kitchen. And I could get these slices of ham, put them between two pieces of bread, either toasted or untoasted, and I would have a very nice meal. But that £1 package has now gone up in one simple stage to £1.45. Now that is a heck of a rise.
So speaking of heck of a rise, I was in Sainsbury's the other day, and you know how they do their packs of 6 baked beans?
Yes.
Which are, I believe, £2.75 for the 6. They've now got rid of that, and they are now £2.75 for 4 packs. So they've got rid of 2 whole tins, but kept the price the same, hoping people don't notice.
Really?
Yeah.
That's outrageous.
Yeah.
Absolutely outrageous. I mean, to be quite honest with you, the supermarkets, I think, have just quite... the one thing that...
Passport Daily Mail.
Yes, partially the paper. The one thing that I've found is that there are certain biscuits which have stayed the same. Now, you've all eaten Pick Up a Penguin.
Yeah.
Penguins have gone from £1 to £1. I think just £1.20, a little under. There is another one, an equivalent one, and I've forgotten what the hell its name is. But it was a year ago. It was £1, and as of last Saturday, it was £1. And they are very nice biscuits. They're just as good as Pick Up a Penguin, and the cost has remained constant. Now, why can that happen? I have no idea, unless Waitrose bought several years' supply and kept them in cold storage or something, that pulls them out a bit at a time and can afford to sell them at £1. But here's the one biscuit, and a very similar one has no rise, and the other has a much higher rate of inflation at rise.
Well, I only found this out recently, but the stores don't actually control the prices. What controls the prices a lot are the companies. The companies say, you must sell my product for £1.25, for example. I shouldn't do it, but I do occasionally buy a bottle of Lucozade, and they are the same price in every single store across the country, unless it's an off-license store. It's actually a lot of the time the companies who keep the prices the same, which is interesting. So unless the company, so Penguin Bars, for example, unless Waitrose goes to them and said, I would like to put up your product by 10p, unless they agree, they can't.
Yeah, I didn't know that. So it's a cartel.
Yes. So
cartel.
some companies are more stubborn than others, and that's why some things don't go up.
A cartel that would be allowed to flourish under a Republican system.
They're allowed to flourish now. What are you talking about? Okay, so I have here the Daily Mail.
You walk into things.
I have here the Daily Mail. I'm not going to be reading the Daily Mail right now. What I'm showing you is the price. So the price now is 90p. When I first started here 4-5 months ago, it was 60p.
Yeah.
It's been going up 5p every 2 weeks. But so they've been slowly increasing it by 5p every 2 weeks. So hopefully you don't realize as much. Whereas the Saturday Times newspaper went up by 50p all in one go.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. And where's the extra cost in newspapers? Is newsprint gone up, or why is it?
Many reasons. The ink's gone up in prices.
Oh, right.
The paper's gone up in prices because there are less people who are willing to do manual labor jobs now. It's a big thing. Everyone wants to do media because, like me, kind of lazy a little bit. Media is most of the time a very easy job.
What? Which media have you worked for? Have you found it easy working for this company?
No, I said
No,
a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But
Apart from which, I get very curmudgeonly from time to time, blah, 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 and people have to put up with that. All I would
you
say
think
to you,
about
Max,
all the people in the BBC and how many people are under them and under them and under them.
oh, yes.
There are very cushy jobs that you can get in media for doing essentially nothing.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. But I work for the BBC, and I found that I was putting in as long hours for the BBC as I did for anybody else. The longest hours I ever put in were for Reuters.
When was that? Hang on. When you worked for the BBC, when was that?
That was 1973, 74, 75.
So a little bit's changed since then.
Yes, I suppose. But even so, some things don't change. And I think that those people who work very hard at the BBC do actually move upwards.
Yeah, they do get noticed. Yeah.
It's people who go in for the cushy ride, keep the cushy ride, and then complaining 5 years later or 10 years later that they are still what they are.
Same with the worst one for this is BuzzFeed News. Do you know BuzzFeed?
Oh, yes.
So
I do. I know only because I came across it. Yeah.
The worst for this is BuzzFeed News. They get paid decent £45,000 a year salary. Nice, comfortable salary to live on. Not anything too expensive, but nice. You can get by on it. And you just sit there. You don't really do much. You write articles. And BuzzFeed is the worst for this. That's why I'm using them as an example. You write articles about top 10 pictures of Brad Pitt's bulge or something ridiculous like that. Which salad are you most like in their like stupid little polls that they do? You do essentially get paid for doing nothing.
Yeah. Oh, it's sad.
That's why a lot of people want to take media as a course.
Yeah.
I never actually wanted to take media. I wanted to take event management, and that got cancelled because of COVID. But my college said, because your course has been cancelled, we had already accepted you. You can come onto any college course in the school, and we will not question it. We will say yes.
Right.
So I picked media instead. Media. And boy, am I glad I did, because otherwise I would never have been here.
Well, no, but that was the college's choice. They approached us to give people work experience, and
yeah, but if my other course hadn't been cancelled,
you wouldn't have been on. Yeah, but also, I mean, if you hadn't have had people in media who they agreed would benefit from work experience with us, we wouldn't have pursued it. We had slightly unfortunate experiences with students from other colleges. One of the things that I forget whether it was the head of Microsoft or whoever said and was quoted is, here are 10 things that you can expect when you leave college. And it said, first of all, you won't be able to go to your tutor and say, can I have a little extra time to finish my assignment, because I wasn't able to finish it. In media, there is a deadline. If you don't meet that deadline, we're in dead stuck. And you're finding that out a little bit at the moment.
I am, yes. So,
well, I mean, I'll give you your due. You are reacting very well, because we are a very small operation, right? We punch above our weight, but we are a small operation, and therefore we've got limited facilities. And I expect that everything can be done with the limited facilities we've got. So that's a very difficult task, and he has to face that task, and he tries to do it very well. But I think that perhaps the sense of urgency, that if you're expecting something to go out on the 10th of May, it goes out on the 10th of May, not on the 11th and not on the 9th and a half.
With what you're saying, that has been the hardest thing to get used to. Is a lot of teachers now are a bit pushovers, and they just allow, oh yeah, next week will be fine. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We'll give you another week. We'll give you another week again and again. There are projects I missed and handed in like a month later. But that's the thing I'm struggling the most with, is everything has to be done. You have to reach the deadline. And then especially when technical glitches happen or technical issues, that's even more stressful.
Yeah.
Because that's not your fault. That's just the computer that has been the hardest thing to adjust to.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing that bothers me, is that everything is the fault of the computer, but nobody ever does anything about it.
Well, most people don't know what to do.
No, but big organizations, which we're not, would have an IT department. They would have somebody to look after it. But even then, I mean, particularly financial institutions, they'll say, oh, yes, I'm terribly sorry. We'll tell the IT department. I don't know whether they tell the IT department or not, but nothing changes. My vision of people in IT is that they're the people that have a soft touch, that they sit down in a basement somewhere trying to figure out how to get you to
make it the most complicated way possible.
3 passwords. I just find it absolutely incredible that I come in here and I'm coming at 7:15. I get in about 7:15, and we go on the air first with the router radio at 7:30. So there are a number of things to do in a very short space of time. And it really, really bothers me when what I do is I go to look at photographs or a news item, and I click on what yesterday would work, only to find it says, please verify your account, and we will send to. Well, I haven't got the time for it, first of all. But secondly, it's just a bunch of nonsense. And all it is these IT guys don't know what to do with themselves. And so they sit down and try to figure out how they can be frustrating by creating more difficulty with passwords. People hate passwords. And if the industry doesn't do something about it, I suspect that if you want to talk about a revolution, that's where one is going to happen. Anyway, what's the time, Max?
45.
10:45?
Mm-hmm.
Right, so we've got 15 minutes to go. What's your plan for that? You're the host.
We'll go to a short break. We'll go to Grange Park.
Yes, our Potter's Wheel.
The Potter's Wheel. Well, that was the Potter's Wheel. You quite like that, I know. A lot of people like it.
Yes.
But I had a question for you. With college now, a lot of it's very laid back, and so is school. What did it used to be like for you? Because I've heard stories from older people in my life who say that it was very, very, very different. What was the education? What did it used to be like in schools? Was it a lot more strict?
Oh gosh, well, you're talking about school. It's very, very strict. I can remember once going into town in the same school, and I had forgotten to put my tie on. Not only did I feel naked, but anytime I saw somebody that I should feel that I should be deferential to, is I put my hand up because I didn't want them to know that I wasn't wearing a tie.
So you draw attention to it.
Well, hopefully you covered up the fact that you hadn't got a tie,
or just tighten your blazer.
Yeah. But I mean, it is. I actually had an email from an old school friend, and a third school friend died this week. I'm sorry to say. So he was letting me know. But when we were at school, I can remember that I felt guilty because my one friend was hit in the eye with a stone in a stone fight, and his eye was damaged. And those people responsible were given not only a ticking off by the Prime Minister, by the headmaster, but they were also spanked. Now, various headmasters would spank in different ways. Some used a cane, and the first time I was beaten, it was with a cane. And I was about, I would have been about 8 the first time. And what you did is you put your hand out like that, and they had this oak rod or whatever, and they brought it down on your hand 6 times. And if you're really naughty, 6 times on this hand. And there used to be, everybody used to say, well, look, if you hold your thumb like that, if they only catch the thumb and you don't get the different ways of trying to avoid the force of it. But believe me, is the shock was quite considerable. So I was used to corporal punishment, and right throughout my life.
To it, yeah.
But to finish the story about the eye, is I felt really guilty that I hadn't been anywhere near, but that it was my sort of crowd of friends that got involved in this fight. And I went to the headmaster and I said, sir, I really feel that you should beat me as well, because all my friends have been beaten, and I don't think it was totally just. And he said, come to my study then at 11 o'clock or whatever. So I went to the study at 11 o'clock, and he sat me down in the study. And then a knock on the door, and a boy came, and he was there to take corporal punishment, to be beaten. And this boy was told to touch his ankles, and the headmaster almost took a run to use. And now, in this particular instance, he used several soles of slippers put together. So they, not only did they hurt more, but they also made a larger sound. And this boy sprang up and said, please, sir, and he begged him not to hit him. And he had to keep on making him bend over and so on, so to get his 6. And then when this boy got on, he said, right, Hayes. He said, now, this boy is particularly cowardly, but do you still want to take corporal punishment?
And what did you say?
I said, well, sir, perhaps a few lines would be appropriate. I tell you, it scared the shit out of me. But also, you did not go without a cap. You did not go without a tie. You did not go without your school blazer. You stood up when the teachers came into the room. And
really?
Oh,
Stood
yeah,
up?
Absolutely.
Wow.
And you called them sir.
Oh yeah, we call them sir still. Yeah.
Well, if that's still in place, that's not a bad thing.
But college, I'm not sure if you would call university or college teachers sir.
No, that disappeared when you got out of school. But
Yeah.
in school,
That's
but also the teachers would throw the board rubber at you. The eraser, and on one famous occasion I can remember in the first form when I would be 11, I suppose, and I remember the boy's name. His name was Wells. Don't remember his first name, but his name was Wells. And in those days, the desks had a little crosspiece to make them more stable. And of course, what we would do is we would put our feet through these things. So Wells had put his feet through like this, and our Latin master was called Killer Strawn, and was notorious for losing his rag. And he lost his rag at Wells for some reason, and came and grabbed the boy and was going to haul him out to the front of the class. But Wells had got his feet stuck in the desk, and so Killer actually took not only Wells, but he took the desk with him as well, dragging it along with Wells's feet stuck in these braces, and that was not considered unusual. In fact, what would happen is you would get out a break and start to tell everybody else in the school what had happened that morning.
Could you imagine the outrage if something like that happened today?
Oh, I know, and
It would be national news.
But you know, sometimes things are telling. Because I taught for a year myself, and I got to know those boys of about 16 or 17 in later life. You know, I mean, we played sports together and so on and so forth. And they said, you know, that they respected me because I was very, very firm with them. And they said, because at that age, you're just beginning to test life. You're beginning to test how far you can go. I said that actually you kept us nicely reined in so that we knew that we could only go so far. That doesn't happen today. You did anything.
I had one teacher like that, but that was it. That's all. I could only ever had one teacher like that.
Well, in those days, hopefully, there were a lot of us. Right, where are we going from here, Max?
We were going to go to a short clip, maybe 5 minutes long.
Okay.
What do we have? We don't have much. We'll go to Jubilee 1. That is 2.5 minutes long.
Right.
And then that brings us to 10:56.
Okay. Well, we won't count, but nonetheless, Jubilee 1 is probably a good choice because with the death of the monarch, what Jubilee 1 does is it starts off in just after post-war Britain and gives some examples of the things that were extant in the early part of the Queen's reign. So very appropriate.
All right.
Mm-hmm. Well, that
Okay.
gives some little reflection there of the changes that have come in the lifetime of our Queen. And believe me, life was very different in the 1950s and the 1960s. And yet, in some ways, for instance, one of the interesting things is, and this came from a Canadian editor that I had, a man called Roy Jacks, who was a giant amongst journalists. I was always very, very grateful that I worked for Roy Jacks. But he pointed out that the English diet during the war and immediately after the war was very, very, very healthy. And that one of the differences now today is, we just the attitude towards junk food is going to be lifted because everybody eats junk food and so on, and we don't give a damn about diet. Now, admittedly, that diet just after the war was imposed on us because there was a great shortage of things. I can remember as a little boy, and this is probably during the war as opposed to just after the war, but as a little boy, I used to sing to the butcher and I would get an extra sausage. And it was a good old English sausage, 80% bread, 10% water, a little bit of colouring, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and a tiny little bit of meat. But I got an extra sausage.
I saw it. Okay. I saw a.
I can tell you what I sang too if you want.
No, I'm all right.
Actually,
I saw a
it is
comment
still a
on-
song today, by the way.
What is?
You Are My Sunshine.
Oh, I didn't know that song. Yeah. I saw a comment from an American, and they said British people's food, the way British people eat, they eat like they're still in the war because we have lots of beans on toast and stuff. And I was just like, for goodness sake, that's annoyingly accurate.
Yeah, I mean, one of the serious things about that, and one of the things that the reason that we spend some considerable time with Suzanne Luchot and with Melissa Winton is, yes, we actually do like to find out what Americans are thinking about things that are happening here, but also we talk to them about their lifestyle because we all have some idea. Not having been, most people have never been to America, but they've got some idea of the way the Americans live and what they do and what they eat and so on, so which is totally fallacious, totally not the way that it is. And by the same token, the Americans have got some view of the way that we eat or the way that we live, which is fallacious. I mean, there are Americans who come over and are very disappointed to find that every house isn't a little cottage with a nice little garden and a nice little hedge and 2.5 children and 3.5 dogs or whatever. But we just have to be careful about how we actually develop our view of people abroad.
Mm. Well, it's been a good show today. It's a shame Stuart was off. He was not ill last week, but he wasn't feeling very good even last Wednesday.
Yeah, he had that fall, of course, which I think knocked him out. Goodness gracious me, it is. It's 11 o'clock, is it not?
It is already, yeah.
Yeah. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
A little damp.
Has it started to rain outside, has it?
It's been raining all morning.
Oh, has it? See, we've been tucked away here out of the wild weather.
Well, I think you did the best thing.
Are you Louisian?
Sorry?
Are you from Lewis?
No.
Where are you from?
Worcestershire.
Whereabouts in Worcestershire?
Bromsgrove.
Oh, Bromsgrove. I was born and raised in Sutton Coldfield, which is not too far away.
Not too far away.
Yeah. Would you mind coming and telling us just why you're here?
Well, we're on a holiday.
Okay, just come here. So
We do a show.
Just a little show. Oh, is this your wife?
It is.
Hello, come on round. Let people see you.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Come along. We do this all the time. People come into the hotel and they appear, and it's wonderful because people love to see who's visiting Lewis. Come, let's just take a little look at you. Yeah.
We're shy.
Well, then tell us why you're here.
Well, we're on a coach trip in the area, and we're going on the The Bluebell line.
Oh, it's wonderful, wonderful experience. Yeah.
We like to experience all the railways all around the country.
Oh, it's great. I took my grandson when he was about 2 up to the Bluebell line, and he'd never seen steam before. And he stood on the platform, and this thing clanked in, and his little body shook like that with excitement. Well, you're just a spring chicken, but
we had a grandson. He took himself on the floor because he didn't want to get off the steam.
no, absolutely, they were wonderful. But in my early days here, of course, we travelled by steam. There was no such thing as diesel or electric.
No,
It was
all steam.
it was all steam. Great stuff. Yeah. Well, enjoy the Bluebell.
Well, we will do. And I was expecting a different environment.
Well, this is the bar, but if you want to order anything, just go through to reception.
No,
We only wanted coffee.
I only wanted a coffee.
Yeah,
That's
well,
at reception.
just go and actually sitting in there, that lounge is very pleasant. And it's much better than the people who are chains. You know, it's nice and gentle
We
and
just ordered
relaxing.
coffee at reception.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Nice talking to you.
Nice to talk to you too. Thank you.
So all the trains used to be steam.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I've never known anything other than electric railways.
Yeah, actually, I think that they converted Brighton to the Victoria to Brighton line was one of the first to get changed to electricity.
And that's the
And
line I get.
in the early 1950s, I seem to think that we started to get some diesel, but the steam trains lasted through till a good 1960, I think. Yeah,
Really?
Yeah.
That long?
yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, thank you very much for watching today. It's been a good show. And it will be me and Liza Page here tomorrow from 9:30 a.m.
If you want to really see the fur fly, tune in tomorrow.
Yeah.
He and I are very, very modest. Very, we went Marquis of Queensberry's rules today. Wait until he and Eliza Page get together. My goodness me, then you see the fur fly. Well worthwhile tuning in tomorrow.
I always enjoy Thursdays. Yes. All right. So it'll be the first hour, 8:30 to 9:30, me and Keith, and the last hour and a half will be me and Liza Page tomorrow.
There we go.
Thank you very much for watching today, and hope to see you tomorrow.
Toodle.